Hey gang, I'm back with another video featuring my Ariens Ikon. I did a previous video where I did a kind of a review on this mower and also an oil change, and I also mentioned in a previous video that I was going to sharpen the blades, and I'm going to be using this kit. I've never used one of these. I've always done it by hand with a grinder, but I want to experiment with this kit and see how well it performs. So I need to get this mower up in the air and get the blades off. So as you can see, I just used some car ramps to get the front wheels up in the air, and with the deck height at its highest setting, that gives me plenty of room to get underneath this and get some wrenches on here to get these loose. Now, of course, it does have 3 blades, and I've already checked. The nut is a 15/16. And to break these loose, I mean, you could use an impact if you had one, but what I plan to do is use some leverage. And basically I want to put a block of wood between this part of the deck and this blade, and then use a wrench, and probably a second wrench interlinked with the open end here to give me more leverage. Or I could use a breaker bar and a 15/16 socket. So we'll see what happens. I'll just have to get set up. There we go. Now, if you're curious what I was talking about when I said interlock the wrenches, basically take your open end of the wrench you're using, take a second wrench, interlock it together, and as long as you keep that straight, that gives you an extra, in this case, about 1 foot of leverage. So just a simple old trick, and it works. Now I want to point out that on this Ariens, it appears there's no slot or keyway on these blades, and that may be a good thing. Obviously it takes a good bit of torque to hold this from turning, but it also lessens the likelihood of shearing off a key and damaging things later. So beyond having it, making sure it's really tight, that's all it takes to get that off. So let's open up this kit. Kind of handy to give you a little diagram here showing, or a little cardboard picture of your mower blade and the side that you're supposed to use the cutting stone on. So basically this is represent the back side of your blade, and that's the front. So for my purposes, I'm going to use my vise. Make sure that's nice and tight, and that'll give me the back side of the blade facing towards me and the front side facing away, so that in using their little stone, that's an easy way to attack that. I also want to point out that the little plastic piece here is very stiff. So it's not going to move on you whenever you're putting pressure down on your blade. And it's designed, from what I can see, that this obviously flat plastic surface, you see it right there, is meant to go, you know, tight against your backside of your blade. It's almost, in a way, I guess, self-correcting. If you were to try to tilt one way or the other, it would probably bind and you wouldn't be able to do the job. So this may work out pretty good. Now it does say to use a drill. So in this case I'm using a DeWalt cordless. Let's see what happens. Still a little ways to go. Okay, so an observation here. These blades are pretty thick, and maybe this kit works better with a thinner blade, but I'm actually developing a shoulder. Whoops, a shoulder up here. So I'm not real happy with that. And it's gotten closer to a sharp edge, but it's still not sharp. So what I may do is start off with that stone, doing the other side of the blade, but I may come back and just kind of dress this surface a little bit with a sanding disc, because eventually you're going to end up with a little thin edge if you keep on going, if you understand what I'm saying there, because you can see it's really narrowing down the original material there. It is doing a good job. It does appear to be making the edge that you're going to want, but again, it's leaving this kind of, I don't know, shoulder on the back side of that edge. So like I was saying, I don't know if this shows up any better or not. It has that kind of an edge like I was saying here. So what I plan to do is take my 2-inch sanding disc. I use these all the time. I'm going to knock that edge down a little bit. Yeah, that's better. And I want to just touch the back side of the blade as well. Still not quite as sharp as I want, so I'm going to fine tune it with my sanding disc. That's much better. So basically the stone gave me a good start, but for my purposes I wanted to finish with something a little bit better. So let me get the other side done, and then we'll see how it balances out. Okay, so the little balancer here is nothing more than a base with a tapered point and a cone. And it has different sizes on the cone for different size blades. So pretty simple. The object is to set your blade on there and see if it's balanced by whether it tips. So I set the blade. I'd say that's pretty close. Now what you could do is take a measurement if you were really serious from, say, the cutting edge of your blade or the back tip, and do that as a comparison on both sides to the table or whatever you're using, the bench, and that way you could see what the difference is in height. But this one actually looks pretty good, and in fact, if you come down, and you can also look at the base and see how level the cone is to the base. So I think that's going to work out just fine. Now I just need to repeat this 2 more times and then get the blades back on the mower. And with that, I'll make a note. Here is a picture diagram from the manual, and it talks about when you should discard the blades if there's more than a 1/2 inch of metal missing or removed. But the more important thing I wanted to see is the torque. And so to install these blades on this Ariens Ikon, it's 100 to 120 foot-pounds. Okay, so this is the second blade, and I should point out that I did take my sander and knock off just some of the junk that was hanging on to the blade, because that will affect the balance as well. And I've already sharpened the blades, so I set this on the balancer and it drops. So that means this side is heavy and I need to remove some material from this side. That's much better. Very, very close to being perfectly balanced. I will point out that in some cases you can't just keep grinding away at the front edge. I actually took some material off of the back edge of the blade. I believe this blade was out of balance previously, prior to any sanding or grinding, because I know there was a subtle vibration in the deck, and I think I may have hit something with this blade at some point and damaged it or lost some material. But at this point, like I said, I took some off the back edge here, and now it's balanced. So I want to show you this. This is the third blade, and this one probably suffers more abuse than the other two, simply because on the Ikon mower deck, this blade would stick out more on the left side. So when you're mowing and you're getting near an edge or around a sidewalk or a driveway, this blade is going to be more exposed to more rough material. So it does have more material missing just from the blade edge itself. If I compare that to the first one that I did, and I'll line up the center holes, hopefully you can see there's a difference in the length or the amount of material left between the two blades, and that's the same on what's even worse on this side. I know it's hard to see with the shininess, but anyway, you get an idea. So what I plan to do is swap this blade with this blade. So this blade will be on the left and this one will be on the right near the exit chute, so that I can kind of balance out the wear and tear on these things. So that's it for this video. As you can probably hear, I've got some little birds chirping up on my back porch. I've got the big door open, and I'm going to go out and mow here in a little bit. But this little kit, I think it's worth it. $7-8 gives you the balancer, the stone, and sets that angle that you need to get these blades sharpened. I hope this video was helpful. I hope maybe you learned something and at least give you some idea what to expect when trying to use one of these. So I'm going to go out and do some mowing, and I thank you for watching. I ask if you would give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, share, all those cool things. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found it at least somewhat useful, maybe give you some insight or some ideas as to how this sharpening kit works. So that'll be it for this video. I hope it gave you at least an idea of what to look. Thumbs up, like, share, comment, blah, 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 blah.